Your role falls into several categories. We've mentioned the emotional support and the social experiences. It's common to hear the mentor described as a coach, a guide, a role model. One person referred to mentors as a broker. I had a conversation with a friend last night and I said, how is it that a mentor is a broker? And he said, well, the mentor is the advocate. The mentor is the go-between. The mentor is the one who refers that individual to other programs, to other venues of opportunity, to college support, job opportunities, those kinds of things. In that sense, you're a broker. You're a friend. You're a fun friend. Maybe a distraction. Maybe life circumstances are burdensome for this young person, and frankly, you're just a breath of fresh air. You're one who can lead them away from their circumstances to opportunities that'll distract them and divert them and grow them in healthy ways. Essentially, you're a listener. When a person expresses something and they're heard, they're validated, and the message to their heart in that moment is that they matter to you. And if they matter to you, then they matter in the grand sense. And this may be the first time that child has had that kind of a listener present, responding to them in their lives. One of the most significant pieces of information that we've gotten from our mentor feedback is that the list that we afford them at the beginning of their mentoring experience is telling them what they are not supposed to do or do not have to be to that child is the most helpful list that they received from us. And so I'm going to spend some time talking with you about not just what a mentor is, but what a mentor is not. A mentor is not an ATM. You are not expected to respond to the financial needs of your mentee. You're not expected to come up with cash when they say they want to do something. If it costs money, maybe there's another solution. Maybe there's another activity. You're not a social worker. We don't expect you to bring to the table expertise that you haven't been given. There are plenty of infrastructures in place to which you can go as a mentor to get the kind of input that you need, or we can refer out if the needs go beyond your expertise. You're not a social worker. You're not a counselor. That's good news. There will be things that you hit that are just bigger than you are. That's what the program director and the school counselors are for. You're not a parent. You don't have to parent this child. They've probably got some of that going on already. You are there to draw alongside of anything positive that's coming out of their family situation that you can endorse, but you don't need to be the parent. You also don't need to be the cool peer. Some mentors feel some pressure to sort of dumb down their expertise or dumb down their skill set, dumb down their insight, so that they can be the cool peer. The children have cool peers already. They need somebody that's going to be a step ahead of them, who can call them forward or upward. You're not to be a nag. That's kind of good news, and it's a relief to the youth, let me tell you. They don't need somebody saying, you should, you should, you should. They already have a good long list of shoulds that they're not fulfilling. So you don't have to be a nag. You don't have to be a parole officer. You don't have to apprise them continually of the rules that they may be breaking. What they need to feel in your presence is some safety to be who they are and to continue to develop along positive lines. You don't have to be their savior. Hopefully they're aware that you're not, that they can go elsewhere for that. And you don't have to be the babysitter. We give you certain expectations that we want you to fulfill on a once-a-week basis with your child, but babysitting for them, and certainly for their siblings, is not one of them. You are not to be called upon on a moment's notice to rescue the parents from their dilemma. You have scheduled appointments with the child that are directed and goal-oriented, but you're not to be the babysitter to them or their siblings. Inherent in this discussion of what a mentor and what a mentor is not is the concept of boundaries. This may be a concept that you're familiar with already, but for some it's a new idea. It's one of the skills that we must learn and we must impart as mentors. Let me give you an example. You may not even understand this as a boundary, but you know well that if you walk into a friend of yours' homes, you should not walk over to their desk and open their mail and start reading it. That's a violation of a boundary. It's a cultural boundary and it's an individual boundary. We know not to do that. Interrupting is a boundary that we're not as good about keeping, but we know as a culture, generally it's a good one to regard. We have a sense, an intuitive sense of what boundaries are if our upbringing has been sound and healthy, and we honor them. Pretty much a good way to know that you're hitting a boundary is when your gut says no. When your gut says, this is something that I don't want crossed, that I don't want violated. We understand boundaries intuitively, but sometimes we haven't been taught or haven't been empowered to state them and to maintain them and to be firm about them. When you're a mentor, it is important to have an understanding of boundaries. One of the boundaries that we give you is that we have a certain expectation about the number of hours a week that you'll spend with your child, and we'll get to those expectations in a moment. We don't want you to exceed those boundaries to a great extent, partially because we want you in it for the long haul. We don't want you burning out. And experience has proven that the mentors that exceed their boundaries, that are continually saying yes to their mentees in areas where they are giving beyond what they feel they really can, they burn out. And then they have to go AWOL on their kids. They have to take time off from mentoring. They have to abandon the relationship. That doesn't do anybody any good. And so what we want to do as a program is empower you to identify what are the boundaries that you want to maintain, and how are you going to do that? Are you able to articulate those to your mentee, to the mentee's family, with grace and with kindness, and yet with a modicum of firmness, so that they know this is what I'm able to do and this is what I'm not able to do? I have a lot of stories in my mind of mentors who have come and said, my mentee asked me to do this and this and this, and then when I did it all, they asked for more. And I said, was there any point in that conversation when you indicated to that child, this is as much as I'm able to do, you'll have to find another way to solve that. How can I help you come to that solution? No, I never found a way to say that to the child. I said, well, then you need to start enforcing some better boundaries. So this is a concept that we really want you to pursue. There are resources listed on the resources page of two natures. One, there's an article called Giving Teens Boundaries, which is essential if your mentee is a teenager, because teenagers are, it's an art form, frankly, to violate the boundaries of the authority relationships in their lives, and frankly, you need to know how to counter that in a teenager's life. Teenagers are in the process of identifying and forming their own sets of boundaries, and you will be the guinea pig in them doing that, and so it's important that you be skilled in knowing how to help them respect your boundaries. The other resources we have listed on the resource page will be available in the Brookings Library. Actually, we've ordered multiple copies of the books by Cloud and Townsend by the title of Boundaries. There's one just called Boundaries, and that's for a person to identify what their own personal boundaries are. But then there's another book called Boundaries for Children, which is actually written to the parent audience, but very applicable to the mentoring experience. So we would encourage you during this first 6 months of your mentoring experience to go down to the Brookings Public Library, pick up one of these books on boundaries, pick up this article on boundaries for teenagers, and really immerse yourself in this concept. By the way, it's an asset that we want to give you for the rest of your life. This is not just something that's pertinent to the mentoring experience, but it's something that you'll use time and again in your employment experiences, in your homes, in your marriages, church life, community life, whatever. You'll need to have a sense of where your boundaries are and how to get the people around you to understand that and respect and honor those. Next, we want to talk about the practices of an effective mentor. You're going to see a slide on your screen that points these out to you, but I want to talk through some of the things that you want to have in place in order to maintain effectiveness. First and foremost, you build the friendship. A good mentor takes time to know who their mentee is. What does their room look like? Do they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Do they play video games? If so, which ones? Do they like them? What's their favorite band? Why do they like the sports that they like? Is there history there? Is there a favorite person in their life that likes that sport? Do they have a favorite sport idol or music idol or actor or actress that they like to follow? You have to find these things out over time. They happen with normal conversation. First and foremost, the mentor needs to be a friend. But it's your responsibility as the mentor to be finding these things out. Children do not know how to initiate divulging this kind of information to you. You need to get good at asking those kinds of questions. And we're going to talk about communication skills as we go on. Learning how to ask those open-ended questions that'll lead you to information about your kid. Mentoring is about the mentee, not the mentor. While there are many things that this will do to benefit you as a person, this relationship is really about the youth. The mentoring is a priority to you, but it's really focused on his or her needs. If you're doing it because you have a need to do it, because you're gratifying something for yourself, I'd really encourage you to find another venue to meet that need in your life so that you can be all about the kiddo in your life. You involve the youth in deciding how you're going to spend time together. Give them a voice and a choice. A lot of these children haven't been taught to make choices, and they certainly often don't have a voice in their family as to how things are going to go. You want to be the person to say, you matter. You're the one I want to hear from. I have this and this and this in mind for us to do today. Which sounds best to you? It's up to you as the mentor to come with the ideas to the table. It's not up to the child to generate the ideas. But to give them a choice validates their importance to themselves and to the relationship. You want to make a commitment to be consistent and dependable, to maintain a steady presence in the youth's life. I cannot overemphasize this point. Not all of our children have had this experience, but some of the children and young adults in our program have had the experience of a lot of turnover of adults in their lives. It's been said that children are great observers, but lousy interpreters. And I just want to tell you that the interpretation that children have made to themselves for adults coming in and out of their lives is that they are not worth hanging out with. They're not worth being committed to. Maybe they're just not a lot of fun to be with. And the last thing in the world we want is for our BCYMP mentors to be another data point on that line for those children. We need you to be committed to this relationship, to be steady in this relationship, and to be dependable. If you can't commit to 6 months with this child, at least to communicate from off-site if you have to travel for your job or whatever, to be consistent in your communication with this child, please do not commit to this program. The last thing in the world they need is for you to show up for the first 1 or 2 appointments and then not show up again. The takeaway message will be the same. They're not worth hanging with. We don't want you to do that to these kids. So please, if you are too busy to be a mentor, drop something before you apply. Okay, the next thing is recognize that the relationship may be fairly one-sided for some time. The mentors, not the youth, are responsible for keeping that relationship alive and vital and the momentum of that relationship. I've had mentors say to me, well, I told my kid to call me anytime and he hasn't called in 3 weeks. That gets a really strong reaction from me. It is not the child's responsibility to chase you down. It is your responsibility to make sure things are on the calendar with a great deal of regularity and that you're there when you say you're going to be there. Pay attention to the youth's need for fun. These kids, a lot of them, don't have a lot of venues for just having fun, for playing, for lightheartedness. You want to be that person that they can have fun with. You want to respect their viewpoint. You may have things that you heartily disagree with. But you can disagree and still validate that they're thinking well, or that at least they're thinking it through, and then just ask some questions to help them see things from other vantage points. But you must respect their viewpoint. You have to let them make mistakes. You have to help them understand the cause and effect of the choices they're making without causing them to feel judged or shamed. Maybe just ask some questions about how that worked out for them if they made a mistake, what they learned, what the takeaway was. But never be the person that makes them feel small or stupid or ashamed. You need to separate your own goals from that of the youth. You leave your personal agenda behind. You have to keep an objective paradigm, an objective point of view about this child, and know that they're doing their level best with what they've been given. Encourage them to work towards their goals, but don't embarrass them if they fall short. One of the differences that I've learned that's really helped me in my role as a mentor is to differentiate between goals and desires. Goals are something that I can construct that I have complete control over. Let me give you an example.